Good morning, Aaron. Greg, good to be with you. And you guys actually give Robert time off?
Yeah. We kick him out every. I think he's applying for his Medicaid card or something. I'm not sure. I'm not supposed to say that. I was supposed to be a secret.
Well, I've known the Wright family a long time. I know where he is in terms of timeline. So
yes,
he needs help. Yeah.
Let me just tell you how this all came about. So all my cards are on the table. Got a call from city folks last night, and they said, "Hey, we've got somebody who really does support this Pelican G League developmental team proposal. We'd like you to talk to him if you can. Would you be interested?" I said, "Who is it?" They said, "Tim Brando." I said, "Absolutely." So here's the first question, old Timmy B. Why is Tim Brando in favor of trying to lure a Pelicans G League team to town?
I think it's a quality of life issue. It's more not just the team, but it's also the opportunity for an event center in the downtown area, which has been sorely needed. As you look at the revitalization of that area, which I think in my lifetime has probably been at its height in the last 20 or so years. There have been mistakes and speed bumps along the way, but, you can't, that old idea of if you build it, they will come, that's always been true here, historically. And the notion that, we can't support sports teams here is also a fallacy. I recall when State Fair, the State Fair grounds had the brand spanking new ballpark there at Fairgrounds Field, and I would come home from Connecticut when I lived up there and was working at ESPN, and I was astounded at the crowds that were on hand. But that was when, and I think this is something fans need to understand, or at least the populace. There are always going to be people that are naysayers that say no to sports. I get that. But those that say, well, Shreveport just doesn't support it, that's just wrong. And to allow that statement to resonate is just not something I'm going to stand, because I know that when we had minor league sports that were connected to real professional leagues like Major League Baseball, when the Captains were an affiliate of the San Francisco Giants, and prior to that, the Shreveport Braves were connected to the Atlanta Braves. When I was a kid growing up in the 60s, people showed up. It didn't matter where the stadium was. In recent years, when we lost those affiliations, and shortly after the casinos came to town, there was this notion that, well, we can't have both. Why not? They're two different marketplaces.
But Tim, we've had our failures. We've had the Canadian Football League was a failure. I mean,
Pardon?
The CFL team, most folks in town would say, was a failure.
That was an ownership problem. That was outside ownership, and they had problems. It was not the city. They drew, with that team, Aaron, record numbers for the CFL in terms of the sites in America at that time. At that time, the league itself, the CFL, was trying to come into the United States, and it had teams in Baltimore. It had teams in Shreveport. Was very fortunate to have a team, but the owners did not have their act together. And frankly, they didn't have their act together even when they were, up in north of the border. So there have been extraneous issues like that. But when we had the problems when the Dragons came in, they were not affiliated with a real professional sports organization. The NBA is completely behind this. They're putting millions into this. Games are being televised. There's a credibility factor that comes with it. But more than just that, I think the idea of having an arena in downtown Shreveport on that side of the river that seats in the neighborhood of 5,000, that will bring a lot of business, amateur events, and trust me when I tell you, sports is big business. It brings a lot of cachet and economic growth into our community. Listen, I'll support the Strand as well as anybody. But this notion that you can't support the arts and support sports in our city it's as old as segregation. It really is.
Tim, your answer to people who say that we have other priorities. Shreveport has bigger needs. What do you say to them?
Yeah, we're taxed for things that I don't even see because they still look like they suck. In this case, I want to see something really good that I'm taxed for. I'm all for it. Something that helps quality of life. Something that brings people from North Louisiana, North Shreveport, South Shreveport, and the inner city of Shreveport together. Why don't we have a building where people actually are coming to an event that come from all walks of life? Something that brings us together, as opposed to things that separate us, okay? Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that I think sports has always been able to do in the past. Ask anyone in New Orleans, historically, why did they stay out of the race problems of Selma and Jackson and other southern cities, Memphis? How did that happen? It happened because the New Orleans Saints were created in 1967. And for the first time at Old Tulane Stadium, there were alumni from Grambling, Southern, and LSU all in the same building rooting for the same team. This is the kind of thing that sports can do that other art forms cannot.
You sound like you're ticked at the people who are out there naysaying and bashing on the mayor. You sound like you're a little ticked.
I'm continually upset with those in my hometown that drag us down, that are not looking ahead, that aren't progressive, that aren't considering. Listen, the Grand Ole Opry could have been. The Grand Ole Opry could have been here. I know it. My father was in television and was working in radio at that time. And what went on here that Frank Page was so much a part of, that Shreveport could have been big, but we got in the way of ourselves. We've gotten in the way of ourselves for more than just a couple of generations in Shreveport. It's time now to move forward. And if our leaders that we vote into office are not looking for making our quality of life, not just for us, but for our generation's generation, the one that we're creating, making it better, then how the hell are we going to keep our young people here if we're not giving them more entertainment value and better quality of life? And, oh, by the way, creating jobs at the same time. This is a great idea. And as for those that are always going to shoot it down, the greatest power that anyone can sell into very easily is negativity. And I hear it in our hometown far too often. I'm a compassionate conservative physically, but I support this move. I think it's something the mayor absolutely had to bite on. It's too great an opportunity. The other cities that are looking for it are similar in size and economics to ours. And this is just another opportunity that we can take advantage of. And if we don't, shame on us.